Good morning, ladies. Actually, almost afternoon, I suppose. I hope that you're having safe travels and that you have an awesome game today. I wanted to do a rundown of what we talked about and covered today in class and give you an idea of what the final will be for EDUC 360 so you can have a plan and start planning for that. And of course, always ask me any questions that you have. I am so more than happy to help you out and meet with you if we need to go over things and make sure that you are having a solid understanding of what you are to do. So first today we talked about concept maps and we referred back to those readings that were posted in EDUC 360. They're actually posted in the final module, so there are 2 readings to take care of for concept maps. And we answered the question, what is a concept map? A concept map is a visual representation of information that shows how things are interconnected. We also brainstormed a big giant list of how we could use concept maps in the classroom. And we can show things like processes, life cycles, water cycle, and kind of an input-output kind of situation also. So like a cause and effect. We can show how ideas are broken down. So if we talked about like the development of a 3rd grader, we could show how physical, cognitive, and social emotional development can be further broken down into smaller ideas. We can describe ideas. We can plan papers. We can organize our thoughts about a reading. We came up with a whole ton of, a family tree was another example. Came up with a whole ton of examples of concept maps and how they could be useful in the classroom. We also looked at some very specific examples of concept maps and some common examples, and we talked through, as we looked at these, how we could use these sorts of maps in the classroom and how they might best apply to specific subjects. We talked about spider maps first, and spider maps are maps with that big central idea in the middle, so the main idea, kind of the main concept in the middle, and then smaller ideas spider off of that, and further ideas spider off of those. And this one was the one that most commonly students in the class had indicated that they had seen before. It's good for representing things like branches of government, genres of music. It can represent just about anything because there's no real order to the way ideas are represented as long as they are connected to the ideas that make sense for them. We also looked at a hierarchy map, and that is a map where the order does matter. So if we look at, for example, this example right here, this is a chemistry map. So the big idea with substances. Substances can be broken out into the smaller things that are mixtures and pure substances. Pure substances can be broken out into elements and compounds, which can be described by formulas and structures. So you can see that this is a big idea, and we get to smaller, smallest sort of ideas, and even over here it's broken out into atoms, molecules, and extended solid, which are even smaller ideas. So hierarchy, the order matters. It's a way to show how something is related and how the bigger concepts are ranked first and then smaller after that. Systems map is the next map that we looked at, and these 3 examples are not the only examples of a systems map you can have. This is great for showing something like a cycle. So this would be a feedback cycle for anything. It might be a project in your classroom where you give students new input and then they process it and then they come up with some sort of a product, then they get feedback and new input and process again and improve their product. Or the water cycle where we start with water and it evaporates and then it condenses into clouds, and then we have rain and then we have water and it evaporates. And really you can start anywhere in this feedback, this loop, this systems map, and keep going, and eventually you'll come back around. Systems map can also be linear, so they could have, for example, I'm just going to draw this over here like a cause and an effect, and then another effect, and then an end game. And it doesn't have to be in a loop. These are all loop models. That's what I pulled. I didn't realize that until I was talking about it in class today. But a systems map could be a straight line showing how ideas are connected or processes are connected. Systems maps usually show something happening. So there is a process that's occurring that's moving from thing to thing. And a hybrid map is any and all of the previous structures just integrated into kind of a crazy map, it just allows for interconnections and processes and all sorts of things to be included, and it's really helpful for complex connections that can't be only hierarchical or only systems or only spider, and that way you have a lot of options when you look at a hybrid map. The other kind of map that we talked about is a mind map, and to be totally honest, I don't believe that these two should be separated. So some people will separate mind maps and concept maps and say concepts are those very structured, words only, boxes and arrows kinds of things. And a mind map is this more organic, fluid kind of situation where you can use pictures and numbers and all sorts of things to represent ideas. A mind map starts with a big idea in the center, and then things radiate off of it. But you can see that there can be all kinds of crazy connections. There can be all kinds of things represented. So it's not quite as structured as the others. These are really good for group collaboration. So if students want to get together and make a map about something, it kind of removes the rules so they can do whatever works for them. And then comprehension checks over any subject if the students make a mind map over it, where they create the connections and decide what sort of mapping tool is the best. It works pretty well. For your final, with all these sorts of maps in mind, we have to make a concept map to represent the ideas we have covered in EDUC 360. So you're answering this big inquiry question: how can I represent the concepts and ideas I have learned in EDUC 360 in a way that shows deep understanding of these concepts or topics? You have to use all of the topics we've covered this semester and create a map and write a 250 to 500 word explanation of your map. Just a note on the explanation: as long as you're not way under 250, it really doesn't matter to me. 250 is kind of 250 to 500 is kind of the goal, so you understand how much I'm expecting. And if you go way under, you and I are going to have a talk about whether or not you've adequately described your map. If you go way over, I'm totally okay with that. So you don't have to stay in that range. It's just a general idea, and whatever works for you as far as going over is great. But if you're way under, you're probably not doing enough. When you look at the map, you can really use any tool. So the map can be a drawing. It could be a online tool. It could be a Word document. It could be sticky notes on chart paper. It can be any form that you would like to use to represent the concepts for this class. For this assignment specifically, you need to include all major topics. And I have included those in the assignment details on Canvas. I'll pull those up when I'm done with this part. And I'm going to show them right now. So here are the main concepts that you need to include. These are the major ideas. So you need to include the word curriculum. Then you need to include the major types of curriculum. Now there were like 11 types of curriculum, so you need to make judgments about which of those are most important to include on your map. You need to include the approaches to curriculum. There were 6. Do you include all 6, or do you include 4 that were really important to you? You're going to have to make those decisions. You need to include standards, backwards design, gradual release of responsibility, and all the components of gradual release lessons. You're going to have to look and see what those are. You're going to have to remember and figure that out. Everything in italics is something that you're going to have to go into our course material and find. Project-based learning and its components. Curriculum mapping and the types of maps. There were only 3 types of maps, so I would expect those to all be represented there. Instructional strategies and the specific instructional strategies. One example was direct instruction. I believe there are 8-ish of those, somewhere in that range. Scripted curriculum, workshop model and the components of workshop model, inquiry and the components of inquiry. So all of that information can actually be found on Canvas. And let me switch over to our class. In the very bottom of our class, so here are our modules. Scrolling down, here's our final exam module. And in the last module, I have linked every single PowerPoint that I've presented to you all this semester so that you can go and find those other terms that you need or information about some of those other terms in case your notes aren't quite as complete as you would like them to be. Now, as we look at the next thing that's required, so that would be what we just talked about, is including all the major topics. You also need to make sure that you have adequate sub-themes or descriptors that show me that you understand the things that we have covered this semester. And for example, if you had written standards in a particular place on your map and you wanted to describe that and show me that you understood it, you might write the different types of standards, Common Core, Kansas State Standards, NGSS. Those might be the things that you use to describe standards. So you have to include more than just those major ideas. You need to include descriptors that show me that you really understand each of those concepts. Then you need to make sure you have appropriate and detailed connections. So multiple interconnections and relationships between topics and subthemes to highlight how they're related and connected. There will be a lot of judgment making in this step. You are going to have to decide how to organize things, how specific ideas can be connected, and what makes the most sense. For example, if I'm thinking about standards and I'm thinking about gradual release of responsibility lessons, and I think about the assessment and the objectives and the standards, those are really all connected. So I might draw lines between them to show that objectives are based on standards and assessment is based on objectives, just to show that I understand that relationship. Our final is due Friday, May 10th at 11 a.m. You do not have to come to class. This is going to be a totally online final that you just submit on your own. I am going to be available on Monday from 9:30 to 11, or sorry, not Monday, Friday from 9:30 to 11, May 10th, to answer any questions that you have. I'll be up in the classroom to help problem solve any difficulty that you're having with the assignment. If you have any last minute questions, as just an hour and a half of helping you out. After you complete your map and submit your written work, you need to do a final reflection. Those are just 4 questions that ask you about how this went, what do you think you could do better, what do you think needs to be improved in the project, and those aren't due until Friday, May 10th at 11:59. Now if we go and look at the assignment itself, I just want to show you that so you've seen it. So it's listed as map final, and there's our final reflection. I've actually already pulled up the map final. I'll go ahead and pull up the reflection too. The final is here, same information that was included on the slide. And then you see that the handout is also here. So that was the concept handout that I just showed you. It's right here for you to pull up if you need it. So there it is again. And then the final reflection is right here. And it's just 4 questions. There's a little bonus question there, and I'll let you read that and figure that out. That's not due until 11:59 on Friday, May 10th. Again, all of the resources for that are here. I would recommend starting with a brainstorming session where you just get your ideas out on paper and maybe use sticky notes to move them around, make different connections, see what makes the most sense. Then you can move to your kind of final product-ish drawing or online tool. There are a lot of mind mapping and concept mapping online tools, and you are definitely encouraged to use the hybrid model so you can make connections in any sort of way that makes sense. I hope this helps, ladies. If you have any questions at all, please reach out, and I will be so happy to help in any way I can. Make a phone call to talk to you guys, or do something on Zoom, or whatever we need to do to make sure that we are clear and you know what to do. So good luck. I hope you have an awesome game, and I will see you guys next Wednesday for our final in EDUC 320 at 8 o'clock on Wednesday, May 8th. Bye, ladies.